Hey everyone, and welcome back to Living HopeCast. Today, we're going to be diving deep into Jeremy Payton's message. Come, sit, stay.
From this past Sunday.
Oh yeah. From February 23rd here at Living Hope Community Church.
That's right.
As always, you can find a full video linked in the podcast description. It's on the church website, YouTube, Facebook, and the app.
It is ready and waiting for you.
So you sent this message in, and what really caught my eye was Jeremy using dog training as a way to kind of explore a relationship with God.
Yeah.
Puppy videos in church. That's a new one.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach.
It really worked. What do you think it was about that resonated with people?
You know, it is unexpected, for sure. But I think that element of surprise is what makes it so effective.
Okay.
Those adorable puppies, they act as what Jeremy calls joy anchors.
Joy anchors.
Yeah, they instantly evoke feelings of pure joy and happiness, and then he connects that feeling to the love that God has for us. It's like a shortcut to experiencing that love in a really tangible way.
Okay, so it's more than just cute puppies. It's about creating a feeling, an anchor that we can return to when we need to be reminded of God's love.
Absolutely.
I can see how that would be powerful.
And he's very clear that, the message isn't really about dogs. The dog training is an analogy. It's a tool to help us grasp a deeper truth about our relationship with God.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's unpack those commands. He starts with come, and he tells the story about training his puppy Sparky in West Africa.
Yeah, Sparky was a typical high-energy puppy, and Jeremy used rewards, things like food and attention, to teach him to come when called.
Right.
And then he connects that to how we approach God.
Yeah.
It's not about fear or punishment, but it's about drawing near to experience his love and presence,
right,
which are the ultimate rewards.
It's interesting because he doesn't shy away from the fact that sometimes coming to God can feel difficult. Especially if we feel unworthy or ashamed of our past mistakes.
Right, and that's where he brings in John 6.37, where Jesus says, "Everyone the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will never cast out." It's such a powerful reminder that no matter what we've done, we're always welcome in God's presence.
Yeah.
It's a pretty radical concept when you think about it.
It is, especially if you've grown up with a certain image of God as being distant or judgmental.
Yeah.
This really flips the script.
It does.
Okay, so we've got come. What's next?
Next is sit. Now, this is where things get interesting because it kind of challenges our typical understanding of how teaching works.
Oh, you mean because we usually think of teachers standing up in front of a class.
Exactly. But Jeremy points out that Jesus often sat down to teach. He uses examples from Matthew and Mark, where Jesus sits to teach, emphasizing that sitting represents a posture of receptivity. It's about being open to receiving God's teaching and guidance.
So instead of trying to earn God's favor through our actions, it's about quieting ourselves and being receptive to what he wants to show us.
I think that's a key takeaway here. It's about shifting our focus from doing to being, from striving to surrendering.
I'm starting to see how these seemingly simple commands actually have a lot more depth to them than you might initially think. What's the third command?
The third command is stay. And Jeremy uses this to talk about the vulnerability of a dog learning to stay.
Oh, okay.
Especially when there are distractions all around. He relates that to our need for trust and focus in our relationship with God. Even when life throws us curveballs, we're called to stay connected to him, to keep our eyes fixed on him amidst all the chaos.
That makes me think about all the squirrels in our lives.
Oh, yeah.
The distractions that tempt us to wander off course and chase after things that ultimately don't satisfy.
It's so easy to get sidetracked, isn't it?
Yeah.
He even uses the example of Jesus in Gethsemane, asking his disciples to stay awake and pray with him, but they struggled to stay focused.
Oh, yeah. It's like they were so tired, so overwhelmed by the situation that they couldn't resist those squirrels pulling them away from what really mattered in that moment.
Exactly. But the invitation is to keep coming back, to keep choosing to stay connected to God, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
We all have those moments where we drift, but it's about recognizing that drift and intentionally choosing to re-engage with God.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect, but about recognizing when we've strayed and making the choice to come back to that place of connection with God.
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
And I think that leads us perfectly into the next part of Jeremy's message.
Yeah.
This idea of moving from obedience to relationship. He talks about how he'd been wrestling with the sense of, needing to constantly do things for God.
Oh, okay.
Always striving,
Right.
always performing.
It sounds like he was stuck in that obedience mindset, trying to earn God's favor through his actions.
Exactly, and that's where the heal command comes in. You know, walking with God, he realized, isn't just about checking things off a to-do list. It's about staying close to him, even when it feels challenging, or we don't feel like we're being particularly productive.
Right. That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the doing and forget about simply being with God, enjoying his presence.
Absolutely. It's about that intimate connection, that constant companionship.
Right.
And sometimes that means letting go of our need to be doing something all the time.
Okay, so we've got come, sit, stay, heal. It's like a roadmap for a deeper, more connected relationship with God. But then Jeremy throws in this curveball at the end, right?
Right.
This personal message he received.
Right. He shares that God told him, I cannot heal you until you learn to come, sit, and stay.
Whoa. Okay. So first of all, that's a pretty intense message to receive.
Yeah.
And he makes it clear that this was a personal revelation, not necessarily universal scripture for everyone.
Right. Which I think is important to emphasize. You know, this isn't about saying everyone needs to have the same experience or receive the same message.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it does raise some interesting questions. What does it even mean to be healed in this context?
Right.
And what might be those things that we're holding on to that prevent us from experiencing that fullness of healing?
Those are big questions, and I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But I do think Jeremy's message invites us to kind of examine those areas where we might be resisting God's healing touch, those places where we're still holding on too tightly to things that are ultimately holding us back.
So if we're constantly striving, always trying to earn God's love or prove ourselves, are we truly open to receiving his healing? Are we even able to recognize it?
I think that's a really insightful observation. You know, it's like we're so busy trying to do that we forget to simply be with God.
Yeah.
To allow him to work in us and through us. We're so focused on fixing ourselves that we miss the opportunity to be transformed by his grace.
Okay, so connecting this back to the dog training analogy, it's like we're so busy chasing those squirrels, those distractions, those anxieties, those things we think will make us happy, that we're not even paying attention to the master calling us to come sit, stay, and heal.
Exactly. We're missing out on that deeper connection, that place of rest and surrender where true healing can take place.
And maybe that's what healing really is in this context.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of our need to control, to strive, to earn. It's about surrendering to God's love and trusting that he knows what's best for us.
And that's a process, right? It's not a one-time event. It's a daily choice to come sit, stay, and heal.
Right.
To keep choosing connection over distraction, surrender over striving.
So what does this all mean for us, the listeners? How do we actually put these commands into practice in our everyday lives?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing the invitation God is constantly calling us to draw near to him. But it's not about mindless obedience, you know? It's about cultivating a relationship built on trust and love.
It's like with those puppies. They come when called, not because they're afraid of punishment, but because they know they'll be showered with love and affection. And that's the kind of relationship God desires with us.
Exactly. He's not some harsh taskmaster barking out orders.
Right.
He's a loving father who wants to lavish us with his love and grace. But we have to be willing to come sit, stay, and heal.
That's powerful. And I love how this message, even though it's rooted in Christian theology, speaks to something universal. This desire for connection, for love, for healing.
I think that's why this dog training analogy is so brilliant. It transcends religious boundaries and speaks to a shared human experience. We all know what it's like to love and be loved by a dog, and that gives us a glimpse, however imperfect, of the boundless love God has for us.
It's like a doorway into a deeper understanding of God's heart.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this message so compelling, so thought-provoking.
Absolutely. And I think it's worth emphasizing that this message, as powerful as it is, was birthed out of Jeremy's own personal struggle.
You mean how he was feeling burned out and questioning why walking with God felt so hard.
Yeah.
And he even shared a snippet from his prayer journal where he was like being so honest with God about those feelings.
Yeah. It's almost like we were given permission to be real with God, too.
Yeah.
You know, to bring our doubts and frustrations to him instead of trying to pretend everything's fine.
Totally. It makes me think about how often we try to present this perfect version of ourselves to God.
Right.
But what if he's actually more interested in our messy, authentic selves?
Yeah.
What if those moments of vulnerability are actually the key to unlocking a deeper level of intimacy with him?
That's a powerful thought. It's in those raw, honest moments that we truly open ourselves up to God's grace and transformation. It's like we're saying, God, I'm struggling. I need you. And in that surrender, we create space for him to move in our lives.
It reminds me of that line from the message, God cannot heal you until you learn to come sit and stay.
Yeah.
It's not about earning his healing, but about positioning ourselves to receive it. And that requires vulnerability, surrender, and trust.
And maybe that's why the dog training analogy is so effective.
Yeah.
It strips away all the religious jargon and gets to the heart of what it means to have a relationship with God. It's about coming to him just as we are with all our flaws and imperfections and trusting that he loves us unconditionally.
It's like those puppies. They don't have to prove anything to be loved. They just show up wagging their tails ready for affection. And that's the kind of freedom and joy we can experience in our relationship with God when we let go of our need to perform and simply receive his love.
Beautifully put. And I think Jeremy's message serves as a reminder that even seasoned Christians, even pastors, struggle with these concepts. It's a lifelong journey of learning to come, sit, stay, and heal. It's about continually choosing connection with God over the distractions of the world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this. What are some practical ways we can practice those commands in our daily lives? What does it look like to come, sit, stay, and heal in the midst of our busy schedules and demanding responsibilities?
That's a great question. I think it starts with small, intentional choices. Maybe it's carving out a few minutes each day to simply be still and quiet in God's presence. Maybe it's choosing to put down our phones and really listen to what he's saying through his word or through the people around us. Maybe it's being more intentional about seeking his guidance in our decision-making or simply expressing gratitude for his presence in our lives.
I love those suggestions. And I think the key is to find what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to spiritual growth. It's about being open to experimenting, trying new things, and discovering what helps us connect with God on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about striving for perfection. It's about making progress one step at a time, one command at a time. It's about embracing the journey and trusting that God is with us every step of the way.
So to everyone listening, I encourage you to revisit Jeremy's message. Come, sit, stay, and really let those commands sink in. What is God speaking to you through this analogy? Where is he inviting you to come, sit, stay, and heal in your own life?
And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your takeaways with us on social media or send us an email. We're all on this journey together, learning and growing alongside one another.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Jeremy's message. We'll be back next week with another insightful message, ready to uncover those hidden gems and thought-provoking takeaways. Until then, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep growing in your faith.